Looking for a camera for YouTube and all the things, and you're just starting out? Well, the Sony ZV-E10 might be the best camera option for you. Stay tuned and find out. Welcome back to the channel. This is the Elevate Project. I'm Ryan, and we're going to go through the Sony ZV-E10 as a great camera option for 2023. So what I want to start off with is a disclaimer. This is my Sony ZV-E10, and this is going to be a little bit biased for a couple reasons. One, this has been a successful camera for me. This is my first beginner YouTube camera and really a content creation camera that has done everything from thumbnails, photography, my talking head videos, personal videography for my kids' dances and sports and all the things. So that being said, I haven't really tried out the other cameras, but I will tell you why I chose this and why I think this is still going to be a great camera option if you're starting out on YouTube and in content creation in general. Okay, so this is the Sony ZV-E10. I will admit this isn't perfect. There are a lot of cameras for beginners that are being offered by all the major brands like Sony, Canon, Fuji, Nikon, and this Sony camera is not perfect. When you're getting into the realm of videography, this is video centric. What is great about this, that it is giving you 4K up to 30 frames per second. You can still take photos with this camera, and it is 21 megapixels, I believe 24 megapixels, I believe. I have to double check that. If I'm wrong, I'll put it here or here to make a correction if I am incorrect. So what I mean by this is video centric. You're going to notice that this doesn't actually have a viewfinder. It doesn't have an electric viewfinder. It does have a flip out screen, which is great for vlogging, or if you have this set up on a tripod, you'll be able to frame your shot, make sure that you're centered, and also show if you're recording. When you press the record button here, there'll be a red border around the LCD display, which is great, especially if you're talking into your camera, you're talking for 15, 30 minutes, and you realize you haven't recorded anything. Another great thing about the Sony ZV-E10 amongst other cameras that are out there, this doesn't have a record limit. So what that means is that you can record up to the capacity of your memory card. There are other cameras out there that only give you a limit of 15 to 30 minutes. With this camera, you don't have to worry. I like to take one shot and just let it record till I get my video right, or I get everything into the video. Another great thing about the Sony ZV-E10, it has interchangeable lenses. And this is great for a couple reasons. You can grow with this camera, even though it's a beginner camera. As you progress on YouTube and your content creation, you can get lenses. And what's great is that if you upgrade in the future, the Sony uses the E-mount system, and you can use the lenses that you purchased onto other, I would say, full frame and APS-C. Just be aware that with APS-C lenses, you're going to have to use crop mode on those full frame cameras, which is okay. The E-mount system, what I love about it, you're going to have the ability and options for a variety of lenses, not just from Sony, but also third-party manufacturers like Sigma. Like this one here, this is a Sigma 30mm f1.4, and Tamron, and also other third-party brands. What's great about that is that there are some manufacturers that are restricting third-party manufacturers to create lenses for their mounts. So a great plus for going Sony. The other thing is that when you purchase the Sony ZV-E10, you have two options. You have the option of just purchasing the body itself, which I recommend if you are for sure going to be buying separate lenses. If not, you're on a budget, I would opt for the Sony ZV-E10 with the kit lens. I know That may not be the advice that you may be hearing, but if you are on a low budget, this does a pretty good job. The kit lens is 16 millimeters to 50 millimeter focal length. The aperture is 3.5 to 5.6. I'll talk about that in a moment. That 16 millimeter is going to be great for vlogging. The aperture is not going to be that great, but that's okay because the aperture is really going to be your background if you want that blurry background. And 50 millimeters is great if you have a shot that you want to take a video of or even picture of. That's a little bit farther away. Now, what I love about the kit lens, especially because it's a Sony kit lens, is that this has optical steady shot, which is stabilization right on the lens. This has active stabilization, doesn't have in-body stabilization like their higher models. And the active stabilization does an okay job. It's definitely not great with the combination with active steady stabilization and the stabilization lens. You're really going to get a good fluid shot if it's not on a tripod. Now be aware, this isn't perfect. So if you do use the steady shot or active stabilization, there will be an extra crop to stabilize the footage. This camera is actually 4K up to 30 frames per second, and it's downsampling from 6K. So it's actually has a 6K sensor, downsampling that to 4K, which gives you a little bit of wiggle room for editing, and to give you a nice sharp image. And what's great that I found with this camera is that the color with the standard profile is pretty fantastic out of the box. If you really want to lower your editing and export out, you're going to get a pretty good color and image and footage out of the camera out of the box. This does have HLG, also SLOG, so you can really play around with those. Or if you are progressing and you want to get your images and your footage even better or practice, this will allow you to do that. Now, when you are recording video, one great thing about the Sony ZV-E10, it has great autofocus. And as a beginner, you may not want to play with manual focus. Autofocus is really amazing on this camera, especially if you're having talking head or you're out and about and you really don't want to fiddle around with manual focus. This does the job. This also has some really cool modes for content creation. So if you're a YouTuber, you're doing a lot of reviews, this has a showcase mode. So what I mean by showcase mode, like with my camera right here, I have the Sony FX30. It doesn't have showcase mode. So when I put a product in front of the camera, I have to cover my eyes to get the camera in focus. So showcase mode is when you can put a product in front, and because I have the active tracking on my Sony FX30, this really or probably isn't in focus. With showcase mode, you can have your eyes still looking at the camera and have this in place, and the product itself will be in focus. Here I have to cover my eyes again to really focus on a product. So having showcase product mode is great for that. Talking about back to the kit lens with the 3.5 aperture, one of the main reasons why you may want to go with a different lens or a prime lens is to have a low aperture. So this 30 millimeter lens that I have on the Sony ZV-E10 is an f1.4, which helps me get a blurry background. With the kit lens, you can still get a blurry background even though the aperture is 3.5. There is actually a button on here as well, or a mode that is a blurry background mode. And really what that does is to lower the aperture to the lowest possible aperture of the lens that's attached to the camera. Now, in your situation, if you are thinking about that and you're creating your scene, just ensure if you are using the kit lens that you are closer to the camera and further away from your background, and you'll still achieve a blurry or bokeh background that you can see in a lot of YouTube videos. So be aware, this has been a great camera for me, and there has been a lot of releases by Sony in 2022, even a beginner camera, which I think this is still better than that camera for a beginner if you're doing YouTube and content creation. One of the great things is that this gives you an external mic port. So you can add an external mic for better audio. The mic on board is not going to be the greatest. It will do the job. If you want to elevate your audio, I would always go with an external mic. What's great about this, because you can have an external mic right into the camera, you can bake the audio in versus what I'm doing right now. I'm actually recording this audio with a separate recorder, and then I have to sync it in post. What's great is that depending on the mic that you have and length of cord that you have, and depending what you're doing, you can boom the mic or put the mic on the hot shoe, and you don't have to sync the audio at all because it's all baked in with the camera. So talking about the hot shoe here, this hot shoe is really cool because it gives you the smart hot shoe for Sony. So if you have Sony accessories, let's say like an external mic, you can actually use the smart hot shoe. It will recognize it, turn it on, connect it, and you won't have any additional wires connected to the camera. Everything will be done through that smart hot shoe, which is again, nice if you're in the Sony ecosystem. So the last thing that I want to talk about with the Sony ZV-E10, which is a great beginner camera, is this design. It is compact. It is a mirrorless camera, but this is a compact mirrorless camera. What's nice, I mean, this is the 30mm lens, but if you were going to connect, you can take a look at this kit lens. This can easily go into a backpack or a camera bag, doesn't take too much room. Even though I have the Sony FX30, when I'm going out for personal use for my daughter, my family, my son, for photographs, for video, I'll gravitate to pick this up because it's nice, it's easy, and it's light. Now, like I said, this isn't perfect. This does have some negatives to it. Now, this is within context because now that I'm used to some different cameras, the button layouts could be better. The rolling shutter on this camera is not that great. Now, of course, if you have a gimbal or if you're not doing a lot of action shots for your YouTube videos, this is still great. So overall, I still think in 2023, at the very least, is still on the top of my list and hopefully might be the one that you choose. If you found value in this video, you know what to do. It really helps support the channel. If you want to see more content like this one, I have a lot of videos on the Sony ZV-E10. You can also watch a video here and here. Be safe, stay awesome, and I'll catch you in the next one.